Today we're cracking open a historical cold case. We're diving into one single event, a cataclysm that absolutely rocked the ancient world. But this isn't a whodunit, it's a whendunit. We're on the hunt for one single elusive fact, the exact year of the Great Thera Eruption. Okay, so let's get one thing straight right from the beginning. The main event? It's not in question, not at all. We know for an absolute fact that a supervolcano in the Aegean Sea just blew its top during the Bronze Age. We're talking an event so massive it makes most modern eruptions look like tiny firecrackers. The evidence, geologically and archaeologically, is just undeniable.
And that right there, is the heart of the mystery. I mean, if we are so certain that it happened, why is the exact date one of the biggest, most heated debates in ancient history? How can we have multiple suspect years, each one backed by really convincing evidence? Well, that is the puzzle we are going to try to piece together.
Any good investigation starts by securing the crime scene. So before we even touch the conflicting timelines, let's lay down the undisputed facts of what went down on the island of Thera. Look, the sheer scale of this thing is just mind-boggling. The eruption on Thera, which you probably know as the beautiful island of Santorini today, was a civilization-altering event. It was so powerful that it completely buried a bustling port city called Crete under a thick blanket of ash, basically preserving it like a Bronze Age Pompeii. And get this, it wasn't a one-and-done deal. This volcano is still very much active, and it erupted as recently as 1950.
So how in the world do you date something that happened thousands of years ago? Well, the first detectives on this case were archaeologists. They were literally digging through the layers of time, searching for an answer.
And for a really long time, it seemed like the case was closed. By studying pottery styles and other artifacts found sealed under all that volcanic ash, archaeologists put together a timeline. And their evidence kept pointing to the same window of time, the second half of the 16th century BCE. So we're talking somewhere around 1550 to 1500 BCE. For decades, that was the date you'd find in the textbooks.
But then, the whole case was blown wide open. New witnesses came forward. And these witnesses, they weren't human. They didn't leave behind any pottery. No, these clues came from the natural world itself. And the scientists who analyzed them, well, they challenged everything the archaeologists thought they knew.
And they came forward with a new and shockingly specific date. A date that was a full 70 years, maybe more, earlier than the established timeline, 1628 BCE. This wasn't just a small correction. This new evidence threatened to rewrite the history books for the entire region. So where did they get a number like 1628 BCE? Well, the star witness was an ancient tree, the bristlecone pine. You see, their tree rings are like a perfect diary of the climate, year by year. And right around 1628 BCE, those rings show a massive environmental shock, a period of frost and awful growing conditions. Exactly what you'd expect if a giant volcano was blocking out the sun. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. It's a correlation. The trees prove that something big happened for sure, but they don't have a Made in Santorini label stamped on them.
But the trees weren't the only scientific clue. Another piece of evidence, drilled from thousands of miles away in the ice sheets of Greenland, pointed to an even earlier date.
Deep, deep down in the Greenland ice, scientists found a layer with this huge spike in acidity. It's like a chemical fingerprint left behind by a massive volcanic eruption. And that layer was dated to around 1645 BCE. For a while, this looked like the smoking gun. But as more research came out, that link has become a lot more uncertain. Pinning that specific acid layer on Thera and not some other volcano somewhere else in the world is still a really debated part of the puzzle.
So at this point, our case file looks like a pretty simple conflict, right? You've got the archaeologists with their 1500s BCE date on one side and the scientists with their 1600s BCE dates on the other. But just like in any good mystery, right when you think you've got it all figured out, there's a plot twist.
In 2018, a major scientific study just dropped a bombshell. It used all this advanced radiocarbon dating, and what did it find? It argued for a date back in the 16th century BCE, way, way closer to what the archaeologists had been saying all along. All of a sudden, those clean lines between team science and team archaeology, they just completely vanished. The whole debate got a lot more interesting.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our case file here, because this really shows you how tangled this all is. You've got the original archaeological date around 1550 to 1500 BCE based on pottery.
Then you've got the tree ring date, 1628 BCE, a strong hint, but not direct proof. You've got the ice core idea of 1645 BCE, which is now seen as a bit shaky. And now you've got new science that's actually pointing back toward the 16th century. The debate is very, very much alive.
Now you might be wondering, why does getting the date right matter so much? Well, it all has to do with the eruption's impact on the main superpower in the region at the time, the incredible Minoan civilization on the nearby island of Crete. And this shifts our investigation from when did it happen to what happened next.
You've probably heard this story before. It's dramatic, it's compelling. A single catastrophic volcanic blast that just wiped an entire amazing civilization right off the map. Gone in an instant.
But is that really what happened? Well, the evidence actually points to something a bit more complicated. The eruption didn't act like an asteroid, causing instant annihilation. So instead of destroying the Minoans, it's a lot more accurate to say it critically weakened them. It put them on a path to a much slower, gradual decline. So here's the bottom line. The fallout was just immense. Huge tsunamis would have smashed into Minoan ports, wrecking their powerful navy and messing up the trade that was their lifeblood. Falling ash could have destroyed their crops. The eruption just caused chaos and long-term economic damage across the whole region. It was a devastating blow, maybe even a mortal one, but it wasn't a single knockout punch.
So, after sifting through all the evidence, from ancient pottery to even more ancient trees and ice from the poles, where does that leave our investigation? The simple, honest truth is, the case remains wide open.
Let's just quickly recap where things stand. 1. The event itself. We know there was a catastrophic eruption. That's a fact. 2. The clues. We have evidence from archaeology, from tree rings, from ice cores, and they all point in different directions. 3. The debate. Modern science has actually made the old, simple science versus archaeology story way more complicated. And that brings us to number 4, the verdict. For now, the precise year of the Thera eruption is still one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries.
You know, this whole case is such a perfect example of what history is really all about. We tend to think of the past as this book of settled facts, but the Thera eruption shows us that even the most massive, world-changing events can leave behind echoes that are incredibly hard to read. It kind of leaves you with one last question, doesn't it? If we are still debating the timing of this colossal, earth-shaking blast, what other historical facts that we all take for granted are really just cold cases, waiting for someone to reopen them?